The brake job before the brake job. This is the HMAR Mobile Tech channel, and today what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video that few people talk about. The first time I learned how to work on cars and do brake jobs and things like that, I was in high school. And in auto shop, we were never taught this. And I think this is the reason why. Modern cars have what's called an ABS system or ABS pump motor. And in those motors, they have a bunch of sensitive parts and electronics and valves. Got the vehicle lifted up and supported, and I've got the caliper off here. And before I do anything at this point, this is what I'm talking about. The brake job before the brake job. Now, inside this chamber here, or the bore of this little piston here that works in the front brake caliper, it fills up with fluid as your brake pads start to thin. That piston has to push out further, so more fluid builds up in its chamber. Now, front brakes can get really hot. I've used an infrared thermometer and seen them get up to 250 degrees or more. You know, if you're driving on a hill and going downhill, and then there's just various times I've checked, I've just found that that's the hottest that I've ever seen. And this brake fluid just sits in there, and it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go back into the reservoir. It doesn't mix really with the other fluid. It's just going to kind of sit here and cook and bake, and go through all those thermal cycles, hot, cold, and get it up to extreme temperatures. This fluid in here just gets very acidic, and it just contaminates, and it just starts to go bad. So that's why you're always going to hear shops and different mechanics telling you that you need to bleed your brakes from time to time to flush out all the old fluid. Well, in this case, I'm not going to be doing that, but what I'm going to do is, before I compress the caliper here, what I want to do is have my brake bleeder. It's a vacuum brake bleeder, and there's a couple of different ways to do this, and this is one of the methods. So this is my Mighty Vac vacuum brake bleeder, and you need an air compressor to do this, and that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is that you can have a helper pump the brake pedal, and then you're going to be bleeding the brakes, so you kind of need two people to do it. Well, you need two people to do it. The third way is that you can get a bottle and fill it with a little bit of brake fluid, and then have a clear hose going into it small enough to fit onto the bleeder on the side of the caliper. And so those will be the ways to do it. If I had to make an estimate on how much fluid you're going to get out doing this, that's sitting here in the caliper chamber here, I would say about 95%. So that's good enough for me. Now, the reason we do this is because if I were to just compress this and push it back up through the line, it's going to go through the ABS motor. Now, this acidic, dirty, crappy brake fluid in here is going to go back up into that ABS motor, and I don't want it in there. And if we, I know how much it costs. Maybe you don't know, but typically those ABS pumps could cost around $800 to $1,500 depending on the year, make, and model of your vehicle. And we all know that most shops charge around $100 to $150 an hour, so you could do the math real quick. That's adding up real quick. So you go to do a brake job on a friend's car or a family member's car, and you just compress the piston of the brake caliper. You push all that contaminated fluid up there, and it might be a much older car. This is just a 2016, but it might be a much older car with fluid that's been in there for 15 years. If you shove that nasty fluid up there, you could cause a valve to fail, or you could cause some sort of an electrical problem with that contaminated acidic fluid inside the ABS pump motor, and that could cost a lot of money. So don't do that. Do it this way, and you'll be thankful that you did. And if you ever do a brake job on someone's car, if you ever heard of someone doing a brake job on a car, and right after they do the brake job, the ABS light turns on, or they have ABS problems or brake problems, this could be the reason why. Check your specifications for your specific year, make, and model. For this 2015-2016 Jeep Compass with the 2-liter, this you can use .4, and if .4 isn't available, you can use .3. So before you start this process, fill the brake fluid up all the way up, because you're going to be losing a couple of ounces when you do this. So you just want to make sure that you never run this below minimum while you're doing this process. So you can start with the passenger side front wheel and then go to the driver's side front wheel last. This is what it's going to look like when you do this process. Always wear safety glasses. Get your wrench ready here. And then get your end here that's going to go on the bleeder here, and then you have your air compressor all ready to go, and then you'll close this down. Keep that lever completely in the closed position so that a vacuum is being applied the whole time you're bleeding, and then while you're closing the bleeder at that time, you keep the vacuum connected until the bleeder is completely shut, and then you can release the handle like that. You'll want to put the vacuum on, and I apologize for the noise. Make sure that if you're going to do this way, that you get, you just make sure you put the brake pad in there the normal way that it goes in there, so you don't damage the outside of the caliper or damage the boot or anything like that, or the piston itself. Take out your caliper compression tool and then take out your brake pad that you used to force that piston in, and then make sure that it's flush, okay? So at this point now, you're ready to start your brake job. And then check the brake fluid level again and make sure you're good. And then do this same procedure to the other side. Now, if you want to torque this bleeder screw, you could torque it to approximately 7 foot-pounds. The second method, if you don't have a vacuum brake bleeder canister tool that I have, you can bleed it with a helper, and just make sure you know who's going to be designated bleeding and who's going to be pumping. So once you guys figure that out, then what you need to do is make sure that the brake fluid master cylinder reservoir is full. And then, so if I'm the person bleeding the brakes, I'm going to pump the pedal. Make sure that the bleeder person, your helper, knows what you're doing so that you can communicate properly. You never want to have that bleeder open while you're pumping it. So it's okay to have it open when you've got your foot on the pedal. So what you do is you just pump the pedal about 3 to 5 times and do this about 3 times, okay? This whole process. And if after every time you want to go check the fluid, it would be okay, but doing this 3 times isn't going to empty you out, so you should be okay. So me as the pumper, I'm going to pump this pedal about 3 to 5 times and hold it, and then I'm going to communicate with the guy who's going to be on the bleeder caliper, tell him that he can go ahead and open up the bleeder, and then my foot should go all the way to the floor, and then that means that it's bled, and then the bleeder is going to tighten up the bleeder screw, and then you guys communicate that with each other, and then you can release the pedal and you can do it all over again. And that would be the way that you could do it. So you would want to do the passenger side front first, and then the driver's side front last. If you follow these steps and do what I tell you to do, like I always say, do the basics brilliantly. Subscribe, like, and share. Appreciate you watching. See you on the next video.